Welcome to season 4 of the Vibrational Shift. I am Johanna, and we are here inside of the Luna Sound Lounge. This is a space where I hold private sessions and Reiki sessions just for you to learn how to come home to yourself. And we're going to dig right into what is happening, what has been happening the last 2 years. I hope that there's a message in here for you, something in here that will resonate with you so that you can maybe make your own decisive action in how to create your own vibrational shift in your life. Before we dive into today's episode, it is sponsored by Root and Ritual, a modern hair studio rooted in intention, presence, and care. Hair that feels aligned inside and out. So today's episode is a personal one. About a year ago, a little bit over a year ago, I was moving through deep burnout, self-doubt, and a kind of overwhelm that left me feeling disconnected from myself. Today's guest is Marisela Rosales, one of the people who helped me find my way back. Marisela is a holistic psychotherapist turned somatic coach who helps women of color return to wisdom within their bodies through her root and remembrance method. In this conversation, we talk about embodiment, burnout, healing through the body, and what it means to remember yourself in the middle of a major life transition. If you've been feeling stretched thin, uncertain, or like your body is asking you to slow down and listen, this is the conversation for you. Let's begin. Hi, everyone. I am so thrilled to be back here. We're going to be talking about my own personal story of burnout and transformation and how working with an amazing coach, I was able to really root back and remember myself. And so I'm excited to have for a second time on the Vibrational Shift with me, Marisela Rosales. I'm so grateful to be doing this conversation with you again. And we just remembered, well, I should say I remembered when you mentioned it, our first conversation was years ago. And so to think about where I was at that moment and where I'm at today, my heart is so full.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. It's wild to think about when we first met, which was during the pandemic, and then connecting through social media and me coming on the podcast and our conversation after you stopped recording that led to us working together, which we just remembered it's going to be a year that we got in touch for this work that we did.
Yes, it has been almost a year. And that in and of itself to me feels like it blew my mind how fast time has gone. But like in the moments when you are going through transformation, how slow the time can also feel at the same time. You know, I think one of the things that really stood out to me when I think about a year ago where I was at, personally and professionally, I was in a place of true self-doubt. And because we've stayed connected over the years, your content regularly shows up in my feed. And I saw this program that you were going to be running. It was going to be a 3-month container where we would go into different embodiment practices. And I don't remember exactly what the marketing materials were, but I felt it. Like I felt it when I saw it and I looked at it and I heard you talking about it. There was something within it that just really, it was a whole body yes for me of saying like, this is what you need. You know, I had already started going back to talk therapy and that was helping for sure in many ways, but it felt like there was still something else that I needed to help me remember, like, Johanna, you can do this. You can see your way out of the situation that you're in. You can be all the things that you want to be. And you just need someone who can be your guide on this 3-month transformation. I didn't know what the time was going to be for us to figure that out. But the turning point for me was really when I was like, there is something else out there, and talk therapy is amazing. And it was one of the many things I was using, but I needed something more to help me remember. So can you talk a little bit about what is embodiment and how does it help women, particularly women of color, that are facing burnout.
Yeah. And I think embodiment is like the foundation of everything that I do. And this idea, and this is my definition, that embodiment is living the thing. It's being inside the transformation, where mindset work is about changing the way I'm thinking. It's really limited. By itself, rarely will you see real, long lasting change or transformation. Because if we go with mindset work only, which is a lot of coaching programs, sometimes even therapy, we're just assuming that if I just focus here on my thoughts, then everything else will change. And we forget that our lived experiences are happening through the body. So we need all of ourselves. So embodiment to me is healing from the inside. It's being on the inside of transformation. So that means that I'm aware, and we're all embodied. If you're in burnout, that's your embodiment. If you're in ease and, all the great stuff, that's your embodiment. It really is looking at from the inside how I'm living. So your embodiment is how you're sensing, feeling, thinking, moving, what you do, what you don't do. The literal way that your body takes shape when you're engaging with the world, how you breathe, how you contract, how you brace, how you're at ease, right? Like all of that is the embodiment. And so it's a fuller, bigger picture when we're looking at, okay, so this is how I'm living. So in my work, what we're wanting is to shift the embodiment, to help shift you out of burnout, out of doubt, because that's your embodiment when you're coming in, right? And so we start looking at, I'm not just going to go through a list of practices, which happens. I've got all my beautiful practices and I'm just checking them off, but I'm not really living them. You won't see change. And I see that sometimes, like, but I'm going to meditation, I'm doing the journaling, I'm doing the things, but nothing's changing, right? So we can think of it as it becoming a way of life. So then if we bring it to burnout, burnout is not just having too much on your plate. It's having too much on your plate, and because of it, your body is now stuck in survival mode. So now with that is everything, how you feel, how you think, how you're moving, how you sleep, how you're eating, how you're breathing, right? It's all of those things. If we look at it through the lens of embodiment, then we can go deeper to start shifting those patterns, to start shifting what's happening in your body. And the body-based focus gives permission for the body to pause and start communicating to us. I'm not even breathing. I'm holding my breath all the time, or I'm clenching my jaw. And we can start shifting slowly through practices that feel safe to the nervous system so that we can start shifting that embodiment. So now you're not running on empty. You're not running on just hustle and pushing through, hoping that if I just tell myself it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, that that's going to shift everything. Right? Yeah.
So, one of the things I noticed when we began our work, I know that we had like an informational call and we talked about how your approach is very unique to you. There is a very calming presence about you. And because you were starting to talk about the nervous system right now, how about you talk a little bit about what does soft readiness look and feel like, and how do you invite it in?
When we're not feeling well, there is this urge to rip the Band-Aid off, to jump in fast, to like, I just want relief. And my approach is soft. So that soft readiness is, how do we slow everything down so that we know in this space, I don't have to do anything I'm not ready for. I don't have to do any other practices. I don't have to talk. I don't like nothing. And I start there. And usually I'm doing it now. I slow down how I'm talking to invite in that sense of there's no rush. You're here. You're in the container now. We're going to co-create this. And usually there, what we'll check in is like, how are you feeling? Can we just drop in and check? Because if you're coming in with that burnout, that burnt out energy that you've been walking through, we don't want to bring that into your healing. Like we're in a struggle with shifting things if then we're approaching with that same like hustle, let's get it done, right? So it's this idea that we're going to go at the pace of your body. And even though your body, if you're in burnout, your body has been in hustle mode, we're going to let your body know it's okay to not do that. We're going to help the body slow down.
I was just gonna reflect on, like you said, you were doing it right now. You were slowing down the pace at which you are talking, right? Like you're easing us into it. And there's something that happened in that first session because you just named it, right? I was in that space. I was embodying this fight or flight. I felt it as a swirl of energy, of anxiety that had been brewing in me for
Mhm.
months, and it was affecting how I showed up in every space. And when I landed on that first call with you for our first embodiment session, I remember thinking like my body has forgotten almost that you can slow down. Because even in my talk therapy sessions, I was coming in there pretty activated, right? And then go right back into recounting details that would put me back into that activation state. But what I noticed was when I was working with you in our embodiment work is that it would take me a while to be able to settle, and you gave me that space to do that. And I think that is a subtlety that can be lost on a lot of people when you're doing this work, is that maybe we're just conditioned to, like you said, to be in that hustle mode where you're like, all right, I have 90 minutes with her. I gotta like make sure I fix it all in
Mhm.
session one.
Mhm.
Or at least that's what was
Exactly.
in my mind. It was like, I have to figure this out. Like, I can't continue on like this. But it was the gentle reminder of like, no, chill out.
Mhm.
And I needed that reminder from you. And it was really just, that's why, like, when I think about our first session, that had such a profound impact on me because I hadn't stopped swirling. I had just
Yeah.
come right into that call, like, okay, now I got to fix this.
Yeah. Yeah. And what we want to invite in is change without pressure. Change without pressure, right? Like a change will happen even if we slow down, even if you don't recount the 500 things that happened today. Yeah. So, ways I invite that in is slowing down, breath, guiding you to just notice your surroundings, to check in with your breath, to ground in and like literally feel your body here in the room versus I'm floating with 5,000 thoughts over here. And then that's how then there's going to be clarity about, okay, this is what's most important today versus just coming in activated and just recount, like you said, recounting everything that happened, thinking that's what's going to create the change. Yeah. So soft and slow.
So, a question for you, right? Because of all of the different offerings that you have, I'm curious, how is a reset session different than the embodied mentorship that we did? Like, what is the difference between those two with you?
The reset session, we can think of it like opening a door. It's a 75-minute one-off session. So it's you can think of it as like I just need a moment to pause and I don't know how to do that. Or I've been holding my breath and I need a space where someone can show me how to like exhale and breathe deeply. Really coming in for a sense of relief or clarity and really reset, right? Like I'm coming in, I need support right now in this moment. So for someone who's never worked with me, it could be a taste of what it could be like without having to get into story and hear all the problems, right? Like just coming in for support in that moment. And they're going to get a taste of what a session would be like, how we would connect to the body, bring in some relief. It's ideal for somebody who maybe is already seeing a therapist or a coach and they're doing mindset work and they want that extra support of, I want to come in. I like to think of it like if you'd go in to see the chiropractor every so often or go get a massage. You don't do it all the time, right? So that's what this could be, but we're looking at the body, our breath. And if it's somebody who's already completed coaching and they want support, here and there without recommitting, then it's also a way to come in for a tune-up, let's say, a session that way. So then the 3-month program, the full mentorship, is over 3 months. Here you're going deeper. You have a vision of where you want to go, and we are going to, over 3 months, look at your embodiment, really look at where you're stuck, and we're going to start moving things so you can move towards being in alignment with that vision that you have. So it's the deeper work, and it's sustained, and it's, regular check-ins over the 3-month period.
When I reflect on the time that we spent together in the embodiment 3-month container, you had me fill out a survey or a form where you asked me certain questions. And I remember just like pouring my heart out into that thing. And it was cathartic because I hadn't really shared that with that many people. And to be able to just like, it felt like a first step for me to kind of write out what was this place of uncertainty that had like taken a hold of me and how I was showing up. And I think I found that after our first few sessions together, I was starting to remember myself. I hadn't realized how much my own stories about myself had really deteriorated how I was looking at who I was, which therefore meant I showed up very differently in all the different spaces that I have to be present in as a professional, as a mother, as someone who holds space for others. I had slowly been chipping away at really not believing in myself, which was really hard for me to come to grips with. I had spent years building up, work around self-love. And somewhere along the way, because of the situations that I was finding myself in, I really had lost that. And it was like during our time together, I started to remember, wait, hold on, you have the tools, you have everything within you. It's like being pulled out of a foggy dream and then you come out and you're like, wait, what was that again? I
Hmm.
felt it in the time that we were spending together. I think what was the most impactful for me was to finally come out of a spiral of self-doubt and to look at where we started and where we ended. You bookended, like my worst point as a adult, I would say, to the break, like where I was scared about like what was going to happen next. One of the last days that we spoke together during that container was like me taking the bravest decision to follow my heart and do what I love. And I'm getting emotional thinking about it because I can't imagine that amount of transformation is possible in that amount of time that we had together. I felt the immensity of the weight that I had been carrying kind of just like lift off of me. And number one, I'm grateful to you for holding that space for me to be able to move through that. But I'm just curious, from your perspective, my assumption is that when you hold space for others, you also start to see those changes that are happening. Um, what were some of the shifts that you noticed? Like I am the first one to admit our first call together, I don't think I made it out of there with a dry eye within the first like 3 minutes I was in tears because I was like, how do I change this? Um, but I'm sure you saw your own, you probably noticed the shifts as well from your perspective.
Absolutely. I think the one thing, and you said it, I think at the end, I knew change was going to happen. I didn't think it was going to be like this huge in 3 months. And I think it was like session to session, you could see like how it was almost like a door opened. Like all you needed was a door to open and someone to say, it's all still here. We just need to remember it. Like the overwhelm, the burnout is just like fogging up your lenses, right? And so little by little, I mean, things that I noticed right away was how quickly clarity came in when we were able to calm a little bit of the anxiety. Like you said, that anxiety that was swirling, to calm it just enough for you to be able to hear yourself and to see the vision. You had it right away. Like you knew where your passion was. You knew what you like, where your heart wanted to go. There was just something stopping you, right? So the clarity was there. Believing, and you even said it, helping you reconnect your body. You started saying that you were working on believing that your whole body was listening. And that started shifting how you were thinking and how you were talking to yourself too, which then meant the things that you were doing, right? Like your whole body is listening. That self-love needs to come back. That self-compassion needs to come back. Then you started noticing your default voice and noticing, then you made the connection how uncertainty was what was creating that little tornado of anxiety. So connecting back to like, okay, but let's help you connect to holding that. And I think then everything just kind of went really fast, because I think then it was like, okay, I'm noticing the difference between confidence coming from ego and coming from alignment. Right? Like that started to come back online. You started, like those stories, you said there were stories there, right? Like untangling those stories that, and I think for all of us, sometimes the stories pop in because they need tending. Usually it's old stuff, right? That will get triggered because of whatever's happening, and it's not even connected, but things that surface, and it's like this just needs a little bit of love so then it can settle. And then you're able to see clearly, like, these are old stories. Like, this has nothing to do with what's happening now, right? But then giving some love there. And I think that's a big piece too, being able to tend to some tender spots that needed a little bit of love, right? And I think that's when you started seeing like, okay, I remember you coming into session like, I feel different. I don't feel as contracted. My breath feels more expansive. Like I can see the potential. I can see what's possible for me. I can see that I have choices. Where I think day one, it was like, there's no choice. I'm here. This is it, right? Like all
Mhm.
of that started opening. And I feel like every session we met, there was a new awareness, a new opening for you. And with that clarity, that was every every single day, it was pulling you closer and closer to, this is the truth. Here are my choices, and this is what I truly want. And I think our last session was your last day of work.
Mhm.
And I remember, I think I had told you, like, I had a dream, like, that last session is going to be your last day at work. And it was.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to find the picture and drop it in here. Our last session that we did together, I was actually at a friend's studio, and I had told her, I was having a session with you. You could see from the second level down into the room where I was at, and she took a picture of me. And she's like from far away, and I'm so glad that I have that memory because I remember how light I felt. And the room that I was calling you from, it's this beautiful, bright room. And there was a disco ball that kept like
Mhm.
rolling around. And you were asking me a question like, well, what do you feel? What do you feel? And the disco ball, like I felt like captured it. Like it felt light, like the actual brightness of the light. And it felt like there was all this potential that I kept, the only thing I could look at, and maybe because I was sitting there in the room with it, where all I could think about was this brightness after coming out of what felt like a place of darkness. And I share this for anyone who is going through a transition, like a big transition in your life where you're just like, you literally, when the fog is so thick you can't see in front of you. That is the visual that's coming to mind, is because I felt like even if I looked down, I couldn't see my own feet. I couldn't even see myself in the thickness of what I was feeling and experiencing. But it was like the longer that I was in these sessions with you and reconnecting to my own practices that had fallen by the wayside, because I think it's important for us as practitioners. So even if you're listening to this and maybe you are a yoga teacher or a meditation teacher or a life coach, when you go through these instances, it's very easy, because I by default was going through this, was like, I should have the answers. I've spent years harnessing these practices. Like, why can't I pull myself out? And I don't think we're meant to heal by ourselves. It's through
Mhm.
community, through guides, through people that can help you tap back into that inner light. So, like, that disco ball for me was just, there were all these facets of light that were popping up as we were talking. And I just kept feeling like every single one of those felt like, the little glimmers of hope that I had been pulling from my community throughout, like the people that held my hand through this really big transition, this big moment of
Mhm.
saying, you get to choose what you want in your life, and you get to choose to be happy, and you get to choose to do something really fucking scary and then find yourself at the other end of it and be like, this is amazing. Like, I have never been lighter and happier, even though the unknown is still very vast for me. But I'm leaning into where my heart has been calling. And I think that is what, to me, has been so beautiful about this journey of the last year, is that knowing that I didn't go my whole life without, asking myself the question, what if I never get to do this thing? And just by virtue of giving myself permission, it really did. I needed the reminders from others in my life, like, no, you can. You can say you want something different, and
Mhm.
you can start to embody it. Like, let's talk a little bit about some of the things that we did together, because I think they were practices that just, they catapulted me to that next, like, into the next chapter of what life could look like.
Yeah. So first, we began with slowing everything down, which, we shared earlier in our conversation. And that was so you could hear yourself, because the doubt is so loud, right? The slowing down helps us be able to tune back in. And like you said, to what was already there for you. You previously had already been working with your intuition and knowing yourself and all these beautiful practices. The slowing down helped reconnect you so you could hear. And so we did work on discerning the difference between the story that was popping up and then slowing down to then drop into the body. It's like, okay, but what does the body have to say about this? What does your intuition have to say about this? Because it was always a different answer, but it was the truth, right? And then we could untangle that and work on that. But I think that was pivotal also, to start connecting you back to, so that you could tell yourself, this is just a story popping in. This isn't the truth. It's just a story. It's an old story, and we're going to change the embodiment around that. And we did that through guided meditation, the body scans, the breathing. I think we did a little bit of movement too, but really shifting so that the body became part of the story.
Mhm.
Right? The body was part of the story. The body was part of understanding where to go, what to do, and what were the next steps that were aligning to that big vision that you had. Um, I know we began practicing using your voice too and speaking out loud. I think one of our Reiki sessions, so, I'll add that in a year ago in this offering, I was including Reiki as part of the work. And in one of the Reiki sessions I did for you, what came through was a message for you to speak out loud. And I remember sharing that, and that was a practice that you were using. And it's so important for anyone listening how to think about how often we silence ourselves out of fear, out of not knowing, and then also out of necessity because the people around us silence us. Whether it's our family saying we're too much, or, mejor no digas nada, don't say anything so you don't like rock the boat. And sometimes it's at work too, right? I can think of times where I was told to not rock the boat. Don't ask too many questions. Don't say too much. So after a while, our throat, even the space energetically, physically starts to close up and tighten. And part of our work, our embodiment work, is to listen to the body and tend to it. So that means we need to use our voice, whatever it looks like for, it's going to be different for everybody, but that we can actually practice making sound through our breath or through voice or through humming or whatever it may look like, so that we open up that space. And I remember it just felt so beautiful to see that have that come through in the Reiki session, and then to have you practice that in your own unique way. And I think that was part of the transformation too, to be able to start speaking out loud, even when you were afraid, even when you didn't know what the outcome would be, right? Um, so I think that's a big piece. Confidence from true alignment and ego. Part of it too was even this out loud was practicing. If I can share, I remember you had an event that you were booked for an event. And I think there was a little bit of nervousness around, right? Like, will people show up? And I think you said something like, I hope people sign up. I hope people come. And I said, what if you start shifting again, this living the thing, right? Shifting to, instead of hoping, what would it feel like in your body? What would it sound like if you were to say, I know people are coming? And can you say that out loud and just connect to your body what that feels like? And then I said, once you're there, again, I hope they sign up for the next one after this. I said, what if you walked in with the energy of, this is going to be so fucking great. Everybody who shows up is going to be like, where do I sign up for the next one and the one after that? Because I want this, right? And so I think that was that shift into that embodiment piece of, how do I integrate what we've been talking about and sensing into that now I can start practicing out in the real world? Not just thinking about it, but saying it out loud and connecting to how it could feel in my body. Because the energy is different from, I hope, even as I say it, I feel my body is shrinking to like,
Mhm.
fuck yeah, people want this, right? It's big, it's expansive, and to start living from that place. So part of the work for anyone listening who's curious is that integration is a big part. There's no curriculum where you're coming in and let's do these things over X amount of sessions and then bye, you leave. It really is co-created to what you need. The rhythm is the same for everybody, right? That slowness, connecting to the body, shifting how you're living, but there's integration there too, that we really are looking at. How are you going to bring this outside the session? Can we start creating ways that your lived real ways that you're going to practice? And I guide you through that so that it starts becoming, while you're still working with me, starts becoming something you're practicing out in real life. And then another big piece was tending to the younger parts. I think anytime we do work like this, yes, coaching is present and future. Unlike therapy, right? Therapy, we're going into the past. It's present and future. However, older parts of us, younger parts, will surface. That's where the self-doubt comes from. That's where perfection comes from. The hustle, the grind. It's happening in the present time, but it's connected to something older. So we create space for those younger parts to surface. and to have a place to also share fears, doubts, whatever's coming up so that we can love on those parts. And then we, as the grown up here, can make sense of like, oh, when I do this, it's just me recreating a habit or an embodiment from when I was 12 or I was 20, whatever it may be, right? Because then the logical brain can help us separate that. So we can let the body catch up to the reality of today. So we
Yeah,
did some of that too.
that was a really
Yeah.
powerful exercise because I kept finding myself in a loop around why I couldn't take the next step that I wanted. And you just stopped and asked me, well, what part of you is that? And I would have never allowed myself to go there or thought to say, how old was I when I experienced X that is making me question my sense of safety and security financially, right? And that was a recurring thought, like constantly, of why I could not step away from what I had deemed in my mind as like, this has been my professional path. This is the way that I have to go. And kind of taking the layers off, it really made it feel like that much more possible of like, oh no, hold on. This is 8-year-old me just sensing into how are we going to be safe? And that again, it like blew it. You said you opened up doors in the beginning, but I felt like that one blew through a brick wall
Yeah.
for me of what
Yeah.
had been constantly coming back up to the to the surface for me. And so I can't underscore it enough for those of you that are going through a transition in your life, becoming aware of noticing what that internal dialogue is that's happening and being able to have a guide with you along the way that just is like that reminder, okay, listen to what the question, like listen to what that is, but then ask yourself, like, where is this coming from? And I had never stopped to ask myself, where does this story come from? And once I did, like you said, I like everything started to catch up, body, mind, all of it. I was like, oh, okay, now I don't feel so bad when that question comes up. It isn't an automatic like shut off point for me. It's now get curious and how can I look back at that time in my life and say, all right, this is what the plan is. Like, this is how I can make myself feel safer in the direction that I'm going. So I really loved that particular exercise that we did together.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes a huge, huge difference.
There was something we did, and what's actually one of the synchronicities that you called out that we had. But if you've ever been to a gathering with me here on retreat or in the DC area, you know that for me, creating sacred spaces, like a place where you can go and sit and be with yourself, is really important, right? And my particular space in my home is my little altar that I have. But this was important for me, and it has been an important part of my practice, is that every year on the winter solstice, I usually will sit down and reflect and think about like, what am I calling in for my life in this next calendar year? Like, what do I really need in order to move forward? And I've kept them over the years, and they're like little slips of paper. So sometimes when I'm feeling really reflective, I'll go back and I'll pull them and I'll look at them. And one of the things that we both had, that I had on my altar, and that we discovered in our first few sessions, we had the same things written down. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you had written down?
Clarity and courage. Right. And I think we had talked about like this is what we're working towards, having more clarity about the vision and what you want, what you need, and the courage to be able to do what needs to be done to get there, right? And I think, I don't remember the whole conversation, but those were the two words. And then you shared those two words are on my altar. It's like, oh, perfect.
Yes, those two exact words have been on my altar for very many years. And so it feels like every year I get another layer of clarity and another layer of courage that gets added on just by leaning into what it is that my heart's been asking for and having the courage to listen and take the next action to move forward.
And that's what this work reconnecting back to yourself, to your body, to your intuition, right? That's what it's all about so that you have more clarity. And within that, that's where courage will start to surface and feel real, right? So I have always loved working with those two concepts.
Yeah, I think something that I'd love to just dip into in our conversation too, because I think one of the reasons why I was so called to work with you is just I love the connection you bring for women of color, but particularly Latinas. And can you talk a little bit about how the body based work is honoring ancestry, motherhood, and maybe even like leadership without the self abandonment piece? Because I think the way that you weaved those together during our time together, and even in what I see in the work that you still, you're putting out now, it's something that I don't know that you necessarily like come out and say those words, but I see your photography or I see the work that you put out, the words that you say, and it feels so in line with my lived experience, like with my identity and how I feel in that aspect.
Yeah. And I'll start with in the bio you said holistic therapist turned coach. My specialty is working with women and mothers. Like my specialty is infant mental health. I was a therapist for babies that had experienced trauma. And from that quickly realized, what about mom? And so I did everything I could to educate myself, get as many certifications, you name it, to work with mothers. So my work has always been with supporting women. And I think it circles back to what help my mother didn't have access to. And I'm a teen mom. So what access to any supports I didn't have. And so it just circles, it's both personal and where I just happened to land out of grad school. But I have a deep love to help, especially Latinas, because that's my background. And for me, where it's coming from is noticing how compartmentalized everything was. Like you have anxiety, let's just work on that. Do you want to work on the spiritual? That's another place. You want to reconnect to your culture and your roots? That's another place. Like everything is just really segmented. And as I was trying to reconnect to like, who am I? And how do I not be in these little boxes, right? Like, how do I explore and discover my own spirituality and reconnect to my own disconnected lineage? For me, it just created a new pathway of like, oh, this is what I think everybody else needs too. How do we bridge it together? So for me, the understanding is it comes back to the body. Like everything exists in our body, our lineage, our ancestry. It's not just the color of your hair. It's not just the color of your skin, right? Or whatever you inherited from your lineage in those ways that you can see externally. It's inside too. And yes, it's trauma and the hardships and the perhaps displacement and disconnection if we go way back in our lineages, but it's also the strengths. It's also the wisdom. We carry that in our body. The things that I know how to do, the energy work, the passion to slow down and help people connect to their own intuition, I deeply believe that is coming from wisdom and practices from my grandmother's, way, way, way back. And probably the same for you and other people listening, right? And so the body-based work for me is a way of honoring all of ourselves, who I am right now, but also what I carry in my blood and my bones. It's all of the grandmothers I never got to meet. Their medicine that is still finding its way through me, right? And so we can honor our ancestry in that way. It also helps us so that we don't feel trapped by it. Because it's very easy to say, well, I have, anxiety because everybody in my family had anxiety. Maybe, but I can also, if I understand it through my body, through my lineage, it gives me an opportunity to create a little bit of space. So then I can say, maybe I'm the one who breaks this pattern.
Mm.
Maybe I'm the one who's going to shift out of this. And I can create new patterns for my grandchildren and great grandchildren. Right. And that's through the body. It can't be mindset only. It is going to be through the full embodiment. If we think of motherhood, leadership, I like to look at it as transitional phases of life, seasons, right? They're hard. They are identity shifting, identity shaking. And it's not just motherhood. Leadership exists in motherhood too, right? And leadership in career, self leadership, how I am becoming the version of myself that puts me first, meaning I matter. I have a voice. I can tend to myself, not selfish, right? But in
Mm-hmm.
a well way. So I can mother in the way I envision. So I can be the leader at work or in my business in the way I envision. So I can be a leader and a member, a healthy member of my community. It comes back to embodiment, right? How am I moving? How am I speaking? How am I engaging with others? Because we are one nervous system with another. And if I'm frazzled and pushing, that's the energy you're picking up. And what does it do to your nervous system?
Mm.
Right. And so it all connects back. And, if we're thinking of just women, then we can connect it to other seasons of transition, midlife, menopause, um, empty nesters, right? Like retirement, whatever it may be, that we again come back to the wisdom that already exists in our body, in our intuition, and connecting that spirituality and the cultural piece just deepens it so that there's more there. So it doesn't look like I'm just doing these wellness things that I'm just checking off a list, right? Like I'm not just floating to yoga or floating to meditation, but I'm not really there. And I think that just creates like this really like yummy way of living and feeling good while being connected to others whom, like in your small circle and in your community in the bigger sense. Yeah. I hope that makes sense.
Does. It does. And I didn't know that you started with infants as part of your I
Mhm.
don't that's new information. Well, I feel like we covered so much. Would you be up for giving the listeners a short embodiment practice that they can do this week? They can do it now and then maybe even revisit it and come back to it, and just a way to gently arrive or
Mm.
whatever you're feeling like leaning into.
Yeah. I want to share one of my favorite practices, and it's using breath and sound as a way to reset the whole nervous system. So we can begin with just feel your body in your chair, whatever or if you're standing, like just feeling your body so that if we're busy doing something, you arrive. I'm here. I can feel the backs of my thighs on my chair, my feet on the ground. So just arriving. And if it feels okay, placing one hand on your heart your heart space and one on your belly. And then what we're going to do is we're going to inhale through the nose and then sigh it out through the mouth. The audible sigh is my favorite way of resetting the body. Okay, so deep inhale in, loud audible sigh. And do that 2 or 3 times at your pace. So 2 more times. And then pause, return to your natural breath, but see if you can notice one sensation, tingling, tightness, anything. Just notice one sensation in your body. And then ask yourself, what do I need right now? Don't overthink it, whatever the first thing is that pops into your mind. And then releasing that. So if you have a journal, maybe jotting down what came through. And then, if possible, can you do that for yourself right now? It's a tiny moment of reset. Like, I'm here, I can feel my body. The audible sigh, our bodies naturally do that. Think about you're hustling, you're doing something, and you're like, okay, right? We naturally do that. So we can intentionally do that for a full body reset. And then that checking in, if you practice that over time, it will strengthen your ability to know what you need. Simple, small, right? I
Mhm.
hope that helps.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm gonna go get some water because the first thing that came to mind was drink drink
Drink
some
water.
water.
Yeah,
Well, I want to
beautiful.
thank you all for listening in, and especially to you, Marisela, for joining us once again on the Vibrational Shift podcast. If you are interested in staying connected with Marisela, you can check out her website, follow her on social. There are specific offerings that she has available. I'm going to include all of that in the show notes. But Marisela, do you want to talk a little bit about any special or specific offerings you are running at the moment?
Yeah, both the reset session, which is the 75-minute session, and the embodied mentorship, the 3-month coaching, those are both open and available right now. So I would love to have anybody who's ready to step into a new embodied way of living. Yeah, get in touch and we can see if this is the right support for you.
And if you are ready to really change your life, like this is the program for you. I will say, like when we started, I could not imagine the amount of transformation that could happen in such a short amount of time. So definitely, if you're ready for that change in your life, you got to reach out and get connected with Marisela. Um, Thank you so much again, and until next time, until the next episode.
Yeah,
Bye.
bye.